Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today, we will be featuring Premium Complete, and we'll follow with Use It or Lose It, Federal CARES Act funding resources. We will have a Q&A time at the conclusion of the webinar, so address those questions to your Q&A box. So let's begin. We are excited to spotlight our new digital product, Premium Complete. Premium Complete unlocks advanced features on all access modal on over 260 plus constantly expanding number of titles from the most trusted source for building codes and standards. This will allow users to take advantage of any title they need, for the Premium Complete spans across all model codes, custom state codes, and a growing number of standards from a convenient single subscription along with features to make your code research easier, including notes functionality and advanced search. It is available 24/7 from any web-enabled device. Digital Codes Premium offers a tier structure including Premium Singles, Premium Collections, and Premium Complete. An introductory price has been set for Premium Complete as well as bulk discount pricing. This price not only includes the model codes and custom state codes, you also gain access to supporting documents such as commentaries, significant changes, revision history, and code interpretations. Those are tagged across iCode titles in line to relevant sections. Singles allow an a la carte access to premium content and features on a title-by-title basis. Collections provide a predefined grouping of related titles like 2021 Complete Collection or location-specific titles like 2020 Florida Complete Collection. Premium Complete, all the content and features available across the platform for one simple price. The Premium Complete provides access to all titles on the platform, both those that are available at the date of subscription as well as titles added while the subscription remains active. Annual and upcoming monthly billing options provides flexibility to users, and auto-renew ensures you never miss an update. Volume discounts and member discounts are applied through the pricing modal. Member discount is applied automatically when user is signed in, and volume discounts are applied when the quantity increases. Price breaks applied at quantities of 2, 3, 5, and 10. For instance, 25% discount on 2 license, 30% discount on 3 license, all the way up to 50% off list price at quantity of 10 and beyond. ICC also provides enterprise pricing, which includes volume pricing over 10 with flexible durations available, providing additional discounts for large teams. Additional 10% discount applies to license pricing on Digital Codes Premium for quantities over 50. You can contact the ICC Enterprise Sales Team for additional details. To give the users a better understanding of the value points in Premium, we now have a feature comparison table that you can find on the Premium Features page. The table provides a visual listing of all features and content available through the Premium experience, including access to additional Premium material like code interpretations, significant code changes, navigational tools for ease of searching your codes, organizational tools such as notes tabs, and a single-click print, copy, and bookmarking. You can collaborate seamlessly with content sharing and team sharing with concurrent access. My Library page. Use the search and filters below to find books in your library. Once you search, for a book title or apply a filter, the Clear Search button will become visible. On your My Library page, you will find listed your recently viewed, favorites, and any recently added books to your expanding subscription. Digital Code Premium enhances the way you interact with your code content needs, including making it easier to find the section or topic you need through advanced search. You will find several convenient search options. Content search allows filters for particular titles or year of development, as well as search within the code you are currently viewing. Premium provides advanced search tools that will allow you to refine your search by using the filters such as any of these words, this exact phrase, all of these words, and none of these words. If you conduct specific searches often, you have the ability to save those searches for ease of generating that same result set on a subsequent visit. Use the Quick Access tool to search through your collection of codes and refine your search results to identify specific code sections instantly. This feature is most valuable in fielding calls regarding code requirements and opinions. You can extract the text for that section with nothing more than the book title and number. Then you can copy the text, share the link, or print it in a single click. Enhance your team's collaboration by allowing multiple users to simultaneously access and share access to exclusive premium content. Features with Premium for teams with concurrent access. Share premium content such as notes, bookmarks, and section links across your team. Access can be shared across as wide of an audience as necessary, with team members just needing to know the access code. The only restriction around concurrent access is how many users are able to connect at the same time, which is controlled by the number of licenses that are configured for the access code by the admin. Additional licenses can be added at any time, and a convenient activity log is available so that admins can monitor how the licenses are being used across their team. As well as concurrent shared access, you can configure individual license for personal use or assign to a specific individual. Premium notes are ideal for taking inline notes to your codebook text and organizing your thoughts. You will have the ability to classify your notes for organization purposes by project or topic, etc., and then filter so that you can work with one set of notes at a time based on your need. You will have the ability to share, export, print notes to make it easier and portable. A recently added feature allows users to quickly and easily move their notes across different printings or different cycles of their premium codebooks. This feature allows navigation through sections, catalog, and access your annotations and bookmarks across multiple chapters to improve the collaboration with your colleagues. You also have a full edit toolbar along with those notes, which includes underline and strikeout for detailed code technical notes. This is convenient for cases like tracking proposed amendments or representing errata for local applications of the code. To always enhance and provide the best user-friendly experience, this is our goal. ICC's new product, Premium Complete, is a digital codes format that is the authentic, trusted source for model codes, custom codes, and standards. We have expanded the Premium trial promotion, which now provides a stronger instruction throughout the trial of Premium. The free trial has been expanded to include Premium Complete. so you can now sign up for the trial even if you have previously signed up for one. We have several options for support of tutorials for Premium Complete. We offer live chat, phone, or our Team On support email. We also provide monthly live webinars to review tools and features. You can find that on ICC's events calendar or Premium's features page. Our next live webinar will be in early December. You can look for that on our events page or our Premium's features page. So thank you for your interest in our new Premium Complete. I will now hand this over for our Federal CARES Act funding, and I'm going to introduce that one that's going to present that to you is Gabe Macer. He is our Vice President of Governmental Relations.
Thank you, Tracy, and good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are in the country. My name is Gabe Macer. Again, as Tracy mentioned, I'm the Vice President for Government Relations at the Code Council, and I head up our federal practice. And I'm going to be talking about the CARES Act, and specifically within that, the Coronavirus Relief Fund. The CARES Act is something that passed Congress back in May of this year, and this Coronavirus Relief Fund provides $150 billion for state and local governments to assist in their response to the pandemic. And the reason I'm on this webinar and we're talking about this funding, the short story is that this funding can be used to purchase online access to digital code. But there are a couple caveats, and I'll want to talk you through those. A couple of them are based on what the legislation says. The relief funds cannot be used for something that was in a budget approved as of March 27th of this year. So if you had a line item in a budget that was approved prior to that point that said this amount of money is reserved to enable access to online codes or digital codes, that would not be something that you could use funding for. The money needs to be spent by December 30th of this year. So it is use it or lose it. And actually, some states might even have earlier deadlines by which they claw back funding from local governments that haven't spent it yet. What can you spend this money on? The legislation says necessary expenditures due to the pandemic. The Treasury Department, which is charged with implementing this funding, has kind of spelled that out further. What they've said is expenses to improve telework capabilities for public employees, and they've also provided a broad catch-all, any other COVID-related expenses reasonably necessary to the function of government. And so based on what the law says and Treasury's guidance, this funding can be used by your department to purchase online access to digital codes, as well as some other things, and I'll talk about those towards the end of my time. So I had said that that purchasing digital codes is eligible for CARES Act funding per the Treasury Department, but that's their guidance. The rubber really meets the road on the choices that are made at the state and local level on how they're using this funding. So that $150 billion was given to states directly, by formula, as well as to larger local governments, so with a population of 5,000 and over. Those direct recipients get to choose how they spend the money on eligible activities. So even though Code Department virtual capability needs, like access to digital codes, is an eligible activity, those direct recipients are going to decide their own prioritization of how they want to spend their money. In looking through the participant list here, there are also a number of smaller local government members here. And the way for smaller local governments to access this CARES Act funding, they need to receive it. It needs to be passed through by a direct state recipient or a direct county recipient, so a larger county with over 500,000 people. There are a couple of different ways that they would do that they have done that. And we've kind of called these direct or reimbursable and a hybrid. So the direct model is the state has come up with a formula, maybe it's sort of by population, so per capita, and they've taken X amount of money that they've received and they have redistributed it to local governments. And local governments, and they've said, okay, local governments, you need to follow Treasury's guidance, and this is how much money that you can use, and that's what you can work with. And obviously document how you're spending it. There's another model, which is sort of like a reimbursement model. And maybe the state sort of sets up a single pot that local governments can make claims against. Or maybe they allocate to local governments a certain amount of money that they can make draws against. So here's $100,000, and once you incur an expense, you can make a draw from that $100,000. The difference between sort of the direct model and the reimbursable model is the state needs to, the state sort of stands in the role of being an approver for every expense incurred by a local government if it's sort of this reimbursement model, versus where a local government receives the money directly, they've got sort of that oversight and flexibility. And sort of in that direct model, local governments could also spend money on activities that they haven't yet incurred costs for, so that they don't have to sort of purchase something in advance and then seek reimbursement subsequently. And then there's sort of this hybrid model where maybe some of the money that local governments receive is provided directly, and then some is made sort of reimbursable. And there are some states that have not done pass-throughs, and there are other places where we have not been able, despite a significant amount of effort, been able to find out additional information about how those states are working. So we've got kind of each of those models characterized here. We've got more information on this on our website, and I've got a link to it later in my slides, including sort of links to state-specific information on how their programs are done. The last thing I wanted to mention on this slide is that we've got some asterisks next to different states. And what that means is that in those states, states have added additional restrictions to how the money can be spent. And because of those restrictions, we don't believe that that money could be used to support code departments that are hoping to address virtual capability needs. So maybe they've restricted funding to local governments for payroll for first responders, for example. So that's what the single asterisk means. Nebraska has the double asterisk because funding to local governments there depended on when courthouses were open. It was a very sort of state specific. So that's sort of the story on, or that's the extent of the caveats that exist. And here are some of the resources that I mentioned. So that state by state distribution of coronavirus relief funds, how it's distributed, and a link to additional information. That's the first bullet on this page. A fact sheet we've put together on how code departments can use CARES Act funding is here. Some talking points on why local governments should support virtual needs, so that you could use those talking points to kind of make your case. And also a letter that's been signed by more than 50 organizations that support ensuring code departments have resources to address virtual capability needs. And sort of knowing the scope of organizations that sort of support these efforts, might be useful in being able to sort of put forward a persuasive case as to why a local government should invest in some of these capabilities, or in addressing these capabilities. I guess the last thing I'll say before wrapping this slide is there are sort of ongoing efforts to provide some additional funding. We don't know how those are going to turn out. There have also been discussions about whether or not sort of the December 30th deadline might be extended. We don't know how or whether those are going to turn out either. And so I guess what I'd say is if I were in your shoes, in your jurisdiction that has funding remaining, using that funding for access to online codes is something that you can do quickly. And in many cases, it will be eligible. But I guess the most important takeaway is that this is something to look into sooner rather than later, because as far as we know, the funding is going to be clawed back at the latest by December 30th, and it might even be clawed back by the state sooner if they want to claw it back and then reapportion it to local governments that haven't spent down all the money they've received so far yet. So that's a little bit of background, and I'll be on. I'm happy to answer sort of specific questions the best that I can, and we can also take those offline as they come up. And then just a couple additional things before wrapping. There are some other ways that code departments can use this CARES Act funding that are very relevant to being able to operate sort of in a remote setting. And that speaks to electronic permitting software, electronic plan review software, remote virtual inspections, digitization of records and records management software. So I wanted to just quickly talk through a couple of those. The first of those this is an example of electronic permitting software. It's called Municity. It's something that the Code Council's Community Development Solutions Division works through and works to implement with local governments. And so this is a product that can be funded through CARES Act funding. And again, you'd want to move on something like this quickly if it's of interest, because this does take a little bit of time to work through. I also wanted to, and there's a link here for an upcoming webinar where you can get some additional information. And for folks that are interested, would strongly encourage you to check that out. Another piece of software that is offered through ICC Community Development Solutions called Laserfiche. This is records digitization, process automation, workflow management, and integration. We have known a couple of different departments that have been able to use CARES Act funding to upgrade Laserfiche or implement Laserfiche. So something I wanted to flag, and we've got a QR code here that you can click or that you can grab to get additional information. And then finally, our partnership with Inspective. This is technology that facilitates remote virtual inspections, technology that has, or I guess a practice that has really kind of come to the forefront because of the pandemic. And what I think is so cool about Inspective is that it's kind of like standalone software. It can work alongside electronic permitting software that you already have. So that's a partnership that ICC Community Development Solutions has with Inspective. Upcoming webinar later this week, and would encourage folks to check it out. So I think that's all I have, and Tracy, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Gabe. Hopefully everyone will take advantage of those resources. What we're going to do now is open this up for question and answer. If you will direct those to your question and answer box on the page, we'll address that as a group.
Okay, Tracy, I see a question here. How will this affect fire protection district that's applying for other CARES Act funding for PPE? And that's a great question, and something I should have included sort of in my overview. These are so local government, states, any sort of recipient of this funding. You've only sort of got as many resources as you have, and there are a lot of sort of very meaningful uses of that funding that exists, and PPE for first responders, as well as for health and safety officials who are building officials, is a really common and a really important use of CARES Act funding that goes to local governments. So what's the relationship between PPE spending or an investment in something like this? It's just up to the local government. So if they have, if they've received the funding directly, so let's say they've got $100,000, throughout the year, they are spending down that $100,000, or maybe they're seeking reimbursement from that $100,000. And maybe earlier in the year, they made a PPE purchase. Maybe later this year, they want to create a PPE stockpile. They can absolutely do those things. And how online access to digital codes would would play into that. It's just whether or not the local government has enough funding available and wants to prioritize funding towards that activity. So the two can absolutely sort of work alongside each other. It's just a question of how much resources are available and how the local government wants to prioritize those resources.
Okay.
So another question, the CARES Act only for government agencies? And that's another great question. The funding that we're talking about, the Coronavirus Relief Fund, for the most part has been implemented through state and local government entities. So funding directly to states and directly to jurisdictions with populations over 500,000 and then passed on to local governments. But something that states and local governments have done is they have a lot of flexibility in how that funding is allocated. And something that has been done is they'll say, okay, we're going to set aside this much money for hospitals, or we're going to set aside this much money for education. And so they can create programs to spend down the resources that they have. And so that's a way to use this particular funding stream to get those funds to non-governmental entities, or the private sector, or nonprofits, whatever it is. So it's not just for government entities, but I would say typically the way that we have seen funds used for sort of like things like online access to codes or remote virtual inspections, it tends to be through local government. That's just been our experience.
Okay, good.
I don't know, I guess, whether third-party inspection agencies are able to apply. Where you're stepping into the shoes of a local government to take on sort of their public function with inspections or if it's plan review, whatever it is, it may be that the local government could use funding to enable sort of access to online codes or some of these other software solutions in your instance. That would be something my gut would be to reach out to the local jurisdictions that you work with and see if that's something that they might consider with the resources that they have.
Okay, I got a actual private message for a question on premium. What do you mean by expanding subscription? What we mean by expanding subscription, as long as your Premium Complete subscription is active, you will continue to get codes within your library as they come in premium. For instance, right now we have some 2021 codes, and as those become available in premium, that will be added to your library automatically. So that's what we mean as expanding. Any premium format in any code that we have, in any updates, that will be provided automatically in your library.
There's another question here, and this is a clarification. In the Coronavirus Relief Fund, who is it available to? So just to, I guess, clarify, it cascades. So there's an initial round that was made to states and to these larger local governments that had over 500,000 in population. And what many states have done subsequently is they have passed through some of the funding that they've received to smaller local governments that have not received funding yet. And so that's when I talked about sort of how different states had done those pass-throughs in different ways. That's the way that smaller local governments would get access to that funding, and it's state-specific. So I'd encourage folks to take a look at our website. We do have sort of a table where we provide some information state by state on how that's done in your state with some links to state materials, state-specific materials.
All right, I'm going to give it a couple of more minutes for question and answers to come in. So far, we've taken care of. So if you have any question, please send it to the Q&A, and we'll be happy to address that.
I see another question here on sort of the asterisks next to the states. And what that means is that those states with a single asterisk, we believe that they have restrictions on how the funding can be used that would prohibit use for code department virtual capability needs, unfortunately. The double asterisk next to Nebraska is because Nebraska has limited local funding based on when a certain time period in which courthouses were open. So that's what those asterisks mean. And just because I've seen it a couple times, the question sort of on fire districts and CARES Act funding for PPE, this does not sort of, I guess it sort of depends on the circumstance. If the fire department has received funding directly, the fire department sort of needs to allocate the money that it's received in the way that sort of it wants to prioritize it. So if it wants to use money for PPE, if there's still money remaining for online access to codes, it could choose to use some of its funding for online access to codes. If the fire department's in a place where it is applying for reimbursement, either to the state, if it's trying to draw down from its own pot, or if it's trying to draw down from a single pot that's available to all local governments, I don't believe that it's going to impact a separate application for PPE. The state is sort of the gatekeeper in sort of that instance, and the state is going to make the decision based on how much money they have available, how they want to prioritize it. And so in that instance, you know, my suspicion is that they're going to prioritize funding to make sure that the PPE requests are fulfilled. And once those requests are fulfilled, and depending on how much is left, they'll look at some of these other requests. But I'll say, you know, if you don't put in a request for it, obviously you can't receive funding for it. So I guess would encourage you in that instance to put in a request for it so that request can be considered, because in many of these instances, again, that money is going to be clawed back from the federal government if it's not used.
All right, I'm looking at a question. After the initial premium cost, what is the annual? So basically, what is the renewal? It will be the cost that you renewed or your initial purchase, so it will renew at the same price. All right. I am not seeing any further questions come in. So thank you, Gabe Mazer, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Feel free, if you have a question after this webinar, to contact Gabe or myself, and we'll be happy to answer those questions for you. Feel free to join the webinar that is hosted on November the 19th, as well as we'll have an upcoming premium in early December. You can find that again on the premiums features page. And feel free to contact our support if you have any questions at the conclusion of this. So thank you so much for your time and interest in ICC, the Federal CARES Act Fund, and as well as Premium Complete. Have a good afternoon and stay safe.